Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining. My name is Gospodinova and I will host this webinar for you. I know that many of you are here today because hiring experienced developers has become tougher than ever. It's not just competitive, it's a completely different game. The truth is that most developers aren't even looking. Around 70%, 70, are passive candidates. They are not scrolling job boards, but they are open to the right opportunity if it speaks to them. So how do you reach that invisible majority? This is what we are going to unpack today. Before I go further, I'd like to invite on stage my guests, Rudi Bauer. Hello. And Chris Heilmann. Hello, how are you? How are you today?
Rudi's in the shadows. We're not
Rudi's in the shadows and Chris is not looking for a job as long as I can see. Okay, that's good. It's a good start. Already kind of passive. So Rudi Bauer is the managing director at WeAreDevelopers. He's been connecting HR and tech for decades. Chris Heilmann, on the other hand, is a developer advocate and long-time voice for developer communities. What I love about you guys is that you have so different backgrounds, and this is adding incredible value to the discussion. So together we'll explore what most companies miss when trying to hire developers, but also how to actually build trust and visibilities in places where developers actually are. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about passive candidates, we mean developers who aren't actively looking for a job, but who are open to opportunities at the same time. They are not on job boards, as I said, but they are building code, they are learning, they are engaging with brands and communities that inspire them. And this is what the session today is about. Why traditional hiring channels don't reach these developers and what you can do differently to attract them. So, Chris and Rudi, before we start, I'd like to encourage the audience to use the chat section for commenting and for posting questions. I'll make sure your questions are taken care of either during the session or at the end for 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how it goes. And I'll be also happy to hear about your experiences. So feel free to participate. I know that it's not that easy when the things are online, but the more we engage, the more valuable this discussion is. And Chris, I'll start with you. You've been in developer advocacy for many years. You even wrote a book on the topic. And you've worked with companies like Yahoo, Mozilla, Microsoft, currently WeAreDevelopers. What you were doing is shaping how they connect with developers, on the top of other things, of course. This is not the only thing you've done. But how did you first get into this space? Can you share with us?
It was actually a necessity for me, and that's something where a lot of developers do the same thing. I was working at Yahoo, and I was an architect, front-end architect, whatever that means, but basically the front of houses and not the back, I guess. And I couldn't get promoted anymore. So basically, as I was an American company, you have to get promoted every half year, or you're not seen as a go-getter. So the other level that was in the company was basically just people manager. So I would have to actually take on a team of people, and at that moment I didn't want that because I was partying too much and I didn't want to have that responsibility. And that's why the good thing about Yahoo was that the back end was actually editable, so you can change your job title. So I changed my job title from front-end architect to developer evangelist, and then people asked me what that is, and then I wrote a handbook explaining what it is. And that's basically how it started, because the idea of developer evangelist or developer advocate back then was to be a in-between translator between the tech people in the company and the outside world, and the tech people in the company and your company as well. So this is how I got into that role. And for a lot of people, that became a big thing. And out of a sudden, there was a whole market about it. There's conferences about it. There's other books about it, and it was really interesting to see that this was one of the frustration bits that every engineer in this world has right now. That at one level, you cannot get promoted anymore as a technical person or an IC person, an individual contributor, but you have to go into management, or you have to go somewhere else in other departments. And oftentimes people leave companies because they cannot get promoted in their company anymore, but they get hired at another level at another company. So this is the bits that got me into that role. And I basically wanted to mix that messaging that I've done in the past as a journalist and a technical person to find a role for me to do that. It's not for everybody, but I think it's important to understand that the necessity for a DevRel person or a developer advocate inside the company was something that already hinted at how it's broken in companies, that people that are techie and non-techie are not talking to each other.
It's an interesting story, Chris, and thank you for sharing it with us. So you're bringing the developer perspective to this discussion. Rudi, you are also evangelist, but in a different sphere. You are connecting HR with tech. You are into people strategies. So tell me a little bit about. You've been exposed to many recruiting trends through our podcast, Cappuccino with HR. You've also conducted different developer surveys. What shifts are you seeing in how companies approach the recruitment of tech talent today?
I think what has massively changed, and I think that's the probably nature of the times we are living in. I think it's everything needs to be more individualized. I think that's probably the biggest shift that I see. I think this one medicine works for all has gone, and it honestly, from my point of view, it will never come back again. And I think that is a kind of a situation that's really strange for companies, but it's also strange for people. I think AI is coming into the field as well. So at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of question marks. And I think that as a third thing, which is really important, is that we have to face the situation that there will be a kind of a problem in the labor market just becoming because of missing resources. I mean, the social demographic developments, they are truths, they are written in stone. So I think we can't neglect it anymore. So we need to face it. And before I joined WeAreDevelopers, I was working at a generalistic job board, and we had a lot of brainstormings internally, how to increase candidate loyalty, how to stay in contact with talents out there. And honestly, we never found a solution for that, because, I mean, if you're not looking for a job, you're not moving around on job boards. I mean, there's no reason to do that. It's neither fun, nor does it make sense. So I think that is if you mix up this, or if you put that all together, we're living in a really complicated situation. And I think companies need to really move on the other side. They need to understand candidates, they need to understand the different behaviors, they need to understand the motivations. And I think what's valid for developers, honestly, is not valid for developers only. I think it's also valid for all the other employees out there. Yeah, I think the only thing what's probably a little bit different is, I always call it, developers have, because of the nature of their job, they have a really well working bullshit detector. So you can't cheat them. Yeah, they are really used to analyze situations, to really look behind the curtains. I mean, that's the nature of their job. And therefore, probably they experience it first, and then probably all the others will follow.
I want to come back on this later on, but I'm really thankful for what you brought, Rudi, and I really love it to have it. I already expect a lot of practical advices from both of you. When it comes to evaluating potential employers, Chris, what are developers really caring about?
I think there's actually a question in the channel as well about this, which is interesting, where what matters more, if it's offering stability or showcasing an exciting product or tech environment. And I think this is the bit where where developers are actually looking at, like, what can I do at the conference, at the company that I'm going to be in? Is it a tech environment that's exciting? Am I just going to be rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, or like maintaining a thing that nobody wants to maintain any longer? And the question is, of course, what kind of employee am I? Like, am I a recent graduate that just wants to do some cool technical stuff? Or am I somebody that already has a house and a dog and a mortgage to pay? So I find it very interesting that lately the big players like the FANGs, like the Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, whatever, they're actually getting in disregard by developers. Like, a lot of people are always said like it's a dream come true to work at these companies, but now we see them laying off people by the thousands. So they're actually not that interesting anymore, because they're always been lately as a springboard. You basically get Microsoft on your CV. You work there for half a year or a year, and then you move to the next one. And that's only for American people that actually can't do that in the Silicon Valley or in Seattle or these kind of things. But in the DACH region, like where we are, it's more about longevity. So it's a mixture of both. Like, you want to actually give people the opportunity to actually keep up to date with technology, because one of our biggest fears as developers is becoming outdated and not knowing what's going on in the market anymore to play with new technology. But you also want to have a stability that I didn't see people striving for in the last few years. And that just happened lately with the mass layoffs and all these big corporations. So people are looking for a mixture of both, but you also have to make sure that you listen to your people. And that was always the bit where I started at a company. Like, do I as a developer have a voice in the company? Do I have a say to say, no, that makes no sense, or we should concentrate on that kind of thing? Or am I just a worker bee that gets the stuff thrown over the wall that I have to code? And that's something that normally people don't go for. So I think the technical environment, if your technical environment is boring as toast, it's not an issue if you give people stability. But it feels always very strange when I started at companies, and I know that in general, people stay 1 to 2 years in a company tops. In the US and in Europe, it's a bit more, 3 to 4. And then you started a company like Microsoft, and you get like a private pension plan as one of the perks that runs for 20 years. And I'm like, okay, how is that related to each other? Like, all the perks we got after a certain level, after a certain age, was like things that were like for the rest of your life, and nobody's going to be for the rest of their lives at the company. So the biggest thing that, to me, and that's probably a personal thing, but I hear a lot of people doing it, especially for Europeans, don't say you join a family. Don't say we're now all cute. We give our employees a cutesy name until we lay them off because we don't like them any longer. It basically,
you don't lay off your family.
That drives me nuts. Like, I love that Yahoo had this Yodel thing in America, and we had an all hands in England, and they're like, hey, let's do the Yahoo Yodel. And you had like 400 people in the room, like British people, all like looking at their shoes. We don't do that. We don't want to do that. That forced, you are family. A lot of people don't like their own family. So basically don't make them like the family that gives them salary. That's not a thing that takes any longer with us.
There is something similar in the chat that you probably somehow answered, Chris. It's a question from Michelle. With more developers job hugging in uncertain times, what matters more when attracting talent, offering stability or showcasing an exciting product and tech environment? So it depends is the answer, right?
Yeah, I think the stability bit is an interesting one. And also as we have uncertain times, just being honest about what you can offer. Like, I'd rather go for a job that has a lower salary than one that promises me the moon and then I know cannot deliver. So basically, to show them that when you come into the company, you have an idea for what I'm going to do there. First of all, I want to have a voice in the company. And second of all, the classic, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I love when companies answer that in the first communication. Like, you can start here's in 2 years' time, this is possible. In 5 years' time, this is possible. Like, show people a road in the company. And that's the stability bit that's missing with a lot of startups and cool companies.
Communication, basically. Rudi, to build on what Chris is talking about, why do you think traditional hiring does not work with developers? What should companies be doing differently, according to you?
Honestly, I think that traditional hiring stops working for anyone out there, because currently, or till now, I think we are really looking for kind of we have an open role and we want to fill it, and then we have kind of a job description, and then we are looking for someone who is really able to fulfill that, probably in the best possible ways. And honestly, I think we need to come to a new kind of way of looking for people. I think it's more, as technology is developing extremely fast, I think it's more this kind of approach to, okay, we need a solution for now, and then we need people that are really willing to develop themselves. We need to help them to develop into different kind of direction. I think we need to come to skill-based, more or less. And I think that's also a big journey for companies, because we have really learned to look in CVs and to find the holes in the CVs and to really cover them in a way, or sort out people by asking them this kind of negative question: why is there a hole in your CV? Honestly, I really stopped reading CVs many years ago, because I think it's the biggest nonsense that we ever have done. I mean, you want to head into the future with someone, and you're grabbing people where they stand now, where you stand now as an organization. And honestly, to really cover and spend a lot of hours in talking about history and talking about where have you been and how did you come there, doesn't make too much sense. So I really stopped reading CVs. What I normally do is I try to get the people in front of me, and then I tell them my story. They tell me their story. I tell them where I want to go. They tell me where they want to go. And then you can find out, is that the match, does that fit? And then you could probably start creating the future together. Honestly, that makes much more sense. And I think that is what people are looking for. Nobody wants to explain the history. I mean, it's like meeting your partner the first time, and the only question you raise is, how many partners did you have before me?
Okay. How many employers did you have?
That causes a lot of headache on both sides. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's never a winning idea
to something.
It's never a winning strategy to talk about your exes on the first date, right?
Yeah. Why should it be then in the employment market? And that's what we talk about during the interviews, the history.
Yeah.
Love this point, Rudi. Okay, so Rudi, positioning yourself as an employer of choice isn't one of campaign, but a continuous presence normally. So how can companies create a meaningful but also recurring touch points with developers?
I think it's like everything in communication. I mean, I think it starts with listening. It really starts with carefully listening. It starts with being on the right place. I think the right place is more or less very important. And before I joined WeAreDevelopers in 2020, I was really continuously watching these guys, because I really found the idea extremely inspiring, to stay in contact with people at the place where these people love to be. I mean, I think that's the cleverest way of staying in contact, to really meet them where they love to be. And that was also my personal basis for the decision to leave Stepstone and to move to WeAreDevelopers, because I found that extremely clever to build a community where people love to be. And it's the easiest way to fetch people is if to meet them where they are, because they want to be there. I mean, I think that's extremely clever. And then I think it really starts with carefully listening. I think that's the second important step, to really listen to their needs. And as Michelle asked the question, what of these three reasons is more important? I think all the three became important. So for Max, it could be the first one. For Julia, it could be the second one. And for Nadine, it could be the third one. Yeah. And all are relevant. And I think if you try to understand your target audience, if you really try to cover their needs, and then if you then build up an authentic communication and a continuous authentic communication, I think that's the best way of solving it, because then probably it means it doesn't fit for all. Yeah, you're not loved by everyone, but you're probably loved by the right persons. And I think that it's honestly, it's a little bit like looking for your lifetime partner. Yeah, I mean,
you stay on the topic, Rudi. You stay on the topic.
Yeah, I'm married since nearly 40 years with the same wife. So I mean, I'm really the expert there. But I think it's very similar. I mean, it's at the end of the day, the dash between work and life disappeared decades ago. So it probably never was there. So we always had to arrange it in a way. And now we're living in times where there's no chance to really have a kind of a dash in between. And so it needs to fit our lives. It needs to fit our personal needs. And I think therefore it doesn't make sense to really try to see it too analytic. It's understanding people, it's listening to them, and then it's giving them authentic answers on their questions. I think that's the trick.
Authenticity is a big one. That's absolutely true. Usually, like, considering that the brand page is oftentimes the first touch point with potential candidates, Chris, at the same time, developers have a sharp radar for hype and lack of authenticity. From your perspective, what makes an employer brand feel fake? And how can companies instead build real trust and credibility with developers?
I think the biggest warning sign is if you never meet somebody from that company anywhere. Like when the company says like we're investing in our people, but then you go to conferences, you go to meetups, you go on chat channels where people hang out, where developers hang out. You don't see anything publicly done by the company from their people, but only by the company. When everything is a press release, rather than you see something in public done by a company person that is out there and is allowed to basically talk about what they do. That's a big thing that I always find fascinating. We're like, we have an open environment. And you're like, okay, and I don't know anybody where you are. I never heard of anybody working for you. And that's one thing that a lot of companies are basically forgetting. Your biggest asset is the people that work for you already and are happy, and go out and tell other people that they're happy about it. I mean, when I worked around our Congress, for example, and I talked to a few of our partners, I had no idea what they're doing, but I met developers of companies and they told me about cool stuff that they're doing, which I never thought that looking at the brand, it looked like a boring old German company. But then like talking to the people and seeing what they were doing and how they were excited about the things made me more interested in their company than any than any ad on television or anything else would have done for me. So the lack of authenticity, or as Rudi succinctly put it, bullshit, is very, very obvious when basically everything is like super organized. And I think right now the biggest thing that I have is that people use ChatGPT to do their job descriptions and to do their descriptions of their companies and their campaigns. And no, everything sounds like a very excited person in California in 1985. And not like a genuine human being in Europe or in another country. So don't try to hype up your company in terms of size, but actually say like, and my favorite is always when people then say something like, as Rudi said earlier, when people introduce their history for like 15 paragraphs and then like, and we're using bleeding edge AI stuff too. And you're like, yeah, how? Like, how do you use that? So you prove it to me by showing it in the functionality of your product, and don't tell it to me that you're doing it, because that feels to me like just a research thing in the background then. So authenticity is very important, to see the people behind the product. Like show your developers. I know we're not all pretty, but show your developers and let them out there, not only the salespeople, not only the HR people, and not only like pictures with every ethnic minority in it, because that shows how worldwide your company works, which it normally does.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is basically that a good sign of having an authentic brand is having an army of ambassadors from within the company.
Just allow your people to talk. Allow your people to
okay.
write.
Not simple.
Have a company blog. Have ways for people to contribute to other things outside. One of the other things that I'm always looking at as a developer as well, when I look for a job, how can I get some extra time to contribute to outside materials, to open source systems that my company uses? Because that's something that is an investment for me as a developer in my career of the future. People will see what I've done elsewhere as much as what I've done in the company. So allow your people to do that, and the contributions that somebody did to a React framework or something like that from your company will also benefit your company in the long run.
A good question in the channel that is aligned with what you're talking about, can you share, Chris, some good examples of developer conferences? I know that you attend many of those.
There's many out there. Of course, ours are really good. I heard, and then there's NDC conferences are really, really good. I'm also a big fan of DevOps, which is a community-run event that actually instead of applying as a speaker, you send in a call for papers, and the community votes up who they want to see. So I really like that twist that DevOps is doing. If you just want to have a super inspirational conference that actually is incredibly creative and at the same time technical, there's Beyond Tellerrand, which is coming next 2 weeks in Berlin, and it's in Düsseldorf as well in May again. Yeah, the NDCs really are more enterprisey level things, but are really, really interesting in terms of locations because they're in like 8 different countries as well. And I also been to Warsaw.js a lot, like the JavaScript communities and the InfoSeek conferences in Poland as well. Many of them out there. And if you want to have something affordable that is good for entry level people to get like their hands dirty talking. No, that's the wrong word. Get to know other developers. There's the Smashing Conf, which from the Smashing magazine people. That's also a really, really fun conference to hang out in.
Thank you, Chris. There is something that maybe Rudi you can take in the chat as well. How would you handle the floating ambiguous job titles and all the individual levels like junior, senior, lead, or their specializations, front end, back end, mobile?
Yeah, I think that is probably the kind of nature of the beast that we are living in, that we are trying to be very creative with job titles. I think there's a lot of job titles coming up every single day, and everybody wants to be super creative. I think at the end of the day, what's necessary is, I mean, we should never forget that we try to explain something what we're looking for, and on the other hand, it's always a sender of a message and a receiver. And I think as more creative become as a sender, as more we confuse the receivers. So my personal tip is keep it as simple as possible. I think we are living in such a complex world that we really try to get simple solutions for nearly everything. It starts with mobile phones, it goes over kitchen machines. And at the end of the day, I think we're living in times that are extremely complex. And I was working in advertising for quite some time, and I was working for some really cool brands there as well. And at the end of the day, less is more was always the best solution. And I would also suggest that to companies as well. Keep it simple. Just tell what you're looking for, what's really important to start it, and don't be too creative in really describing it, and make it as granular as possible, because at the end of the day, it's just complex, putting more complexity into it, and try to avoid it.
It also ties back into the authenticity thing. Like when a company says like they're looking for a rock star developer, I just want to wreck their office in the first interview to see like you wanted a rock star, right? Yeah. It's a very much a nonsense thing we don't need any longer. And especially when somebody says like we want a full stack developer, that means like, okay, you want to hire one person instead of 3. Yeah, that's another thing that I kind of like, okay, forget it. I don't care for that job title anymore. I think also it's a matter of like how you are in your career. I've been doing the same job since like 35 years or something, and I had job titles like HTML monkey and all kind of things. And you gave yourself creative titles to basically stand out on LinkedIn as well. But in the end, you will have there are HR levels, and there are basically things that other companies, that more serious companies, will look for later on. And if your whole CV is full of like cool job titles that don't make any sense, that is also a bad sign for people hiring you in the future. So just saying like we're a senior, mid-level, lead developer, engineer, architect is totally fine by me. I think just like trying to stand out by having a kooky job title is kind of like a big no-no, and reminds me of the first .com boom, and then now the second .com crash that's happening at the moment. So just give me something that I can also tie in with a salary band, or a dependency band, what I can do in the company in that level, rather than just like, okay, we need a database superstar, whatever that means.
It's an interesting perspective that is opening up now. Authenticity in job descriptions is one thing, but authenticity in the CV is also something that is very important. And since that, both are somehow missing nowadays, like, right?
I mean, honestly, what I think what happens right now, and it has already started, I think. I mean, clever candidates are using ChatGPT to write all their applications, yeah, and companies are using more and more using ChatGPT to probably write the listings, the job listings. And at the end of the day, if we don't take care, I think AI is applying to AI. And that means we need to come back on the human track as quick as possible. And that's my tip, to really try to get in contact with the people as quick as possible, because then you really get the kind of a realistic chance to see if it's a match or not. Because I mean, if AI is applying to AI, I mean, of course, I mean, we will end up with a kind of a hell of a lot of muddy stuff that's there. And I think, honestly, we are looking for humans. We're looking for humans that fit our organizations. We're looking for humans that fit our teams, that fit our purpose, that fit our salary possibilities. I think that's also very important. But at the end of the day, I think we need to get in contact with the people on a human level as quick as possible. And I think companies should aim for that. And I think that would also massively increase candidate experience on the other side, because what happens now is that there's a kind of a long-lasting foggy track where nobody knows, am I still in, am I already out, are they interested, do I have realistic chances? And I think we should get rid of this foggy situation. And I think as we normally get a kind of with the first document that we receive from a candidate, we normally have his mobile number or her mobile number. So what the hell blocks us from just giving her or him a call? Yeah, it's so easy. It could be so easy, yeah. And we extend it, and we always try along the way. We try to implement more and more fancy tools supported by AI or not to make it even more complex. No, just take the complexity out of it, please.
I realize that is happening when humans are not involved, and also not the right humans are involved, is that this lack of authenticity when it comes to job descriptions, they become like a discrepancy. They turned out into a discrepancy, because you interview about something that is on the job description with the HR, but when you go to the hiring manager, when you go and speak with the person who is going to be your manager, they are also surprised about what you're bringing, why you're here. You're not the right candidate, what we are looking for. The candidate is at the same time surprised. Why these questions? I'm not here for this position. So like, it's really going into a direction that is watering down the company brand instead of something else.
Another big trick is to take your job descriptions and show it to your own engineers that are in that role, and basically say like, okay, what's going on there? One of the biggest frustrations I had when I was a lead developer, that I wanted to hire people, I sent the job specs over, and then it went through HR, and something completely different came out at the end of it. Like, I don't care if you have a degree in bioscience, if you actually are supposed to be a JavaScript developer. So there's this a blueprint that came into the job descriptions that is basically fluff. And as Rudi said, like nowadays, basically we allow AI bots to talk to AI bots, and there is actually security attacks with like fake resumes and these kind of things nowadays. So this is becoming a very non-human thing to do. The dirty secret of me is that the last 8 jobs that I had were word of mouth. I actually never applied. I never looked at like job listings. I met people at events of companies, and they saw a talk of mine, or they commented on one of my things that I've written, and then I got to know the company that way. And that is a huge thing that actually means they're probably shooting ourselves in the foot right now with that. But you don't need to spend money on a job ad if that happens. Like, if your people inspire other people when they're out in public, and drag them through the door that way, that's actually much, much more powerful because you already went past the non-human bit that Rudi talked about.
Posting a job ad is just a tool, but when hiring a developer, you just need a toolkit. You don't only need one tool. There is something maybe for you, Rudi, but also for Chris. I mean, I'll be curious to hear both of you. How would you verify candidates' real skills beyond their CV? There are two questions that are very similar.
Chris, do you want to start?
Basically, I look at what they've done before. That's where it's great if they actually worked in a place that has an open repository or something, or they contributed somewhere else. When people have like a GitHub link where they actually say like, here's the code that I do, I look at those and I don't actually look at the quality of the code. I actually look more how they interacted with people around the code. Like, what have they done with pull requests? What have they done with negative comments? That's how I actually see how they will work in a team later on as well. And in general, beyond the CV, just see what they were working on. And my favorite bit was when I worked for Yahoo, that we gave people a job interview. Basically, we gave them something to build. And when they came in, we actually didn't ask them to we didn't look at the code they've done. We asked them to describe what they've done, to how they approached it and how they solved it. And I think that was a very, very fast way to find out if somebody is a sensible candidate or not. Basically, I use a CV as a springboard to look at resources, what people have done, or what people are looking for, rather than just like saying like anybody can pretend they've done that or they've done that. So a lot of like listings of like, I've got my Microsoft verified this and there, shows that you're interested in the kind of things, but it doesn't mean that you're actually proving that you've done it. And also just challenge them in terms of the communication. Here's in the company we do let this. Have you heard of that technology? Have you heard of that kind of thing? There's a few probing questions you can send, so you realize if people put it in their CV to fulfill a requirement, or if people put it in their CV because they really knew that technology or that idea.
I just want to add, I mean, there's some really nice tools out there as well that you can use for taking care about the skills and getting a kind of answer on that. So I met one of our partners at the last conference in July. It's CandyTech, which is a company which really has taken care about that in a really nice way. So they really try to get out all the complexity of this topic as well, and it's more fun doing it than kind of feeling like being examined. So at the end of the day, I think there's some tools that you can use as well. But I fully agree to what Chris said. I think at the end of the day, it's not important that somebody is an expert in one language, because probably coding is done by AI in the future more and more. But I think it's more this kind of orchestrating solutions and having a deep understanding for how to solve a problem. I think that's becoming more and more important. That's my personal view on it.
How many stages, another question in the chat, would you recommend to assess the developer without driving them crazy?
I think we have a dedicated answer on that, because we're doing a survey every second year. It's a big one. And with the last one, we found out that that both sides are coming closer. So I think initially we started with 4 on the HR side and with 1 on the developer side. In the meantime, we ended up with 2 on the developer side and 3 at the HR side. So at the end of the day, it's probably 2.5, which is the optimum. So I don't know, but
how do you do the 0.5?
I don't know. Probably it's just a kind of a gamification thingy. No, I think at the end of the day,
break it off. You just halfway through the interview, you tell people to leave the room. That's it.
Or that they are hired.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's also not the question, is it 2 or 3? It's more, is the process transparent, and does everyone, both sides, understand why it's done now? It sometimes feels a little bit like, okay, it's just doing something crazy, and the candidate side don't even understand why it happens, and the other way around as well. So I think it should be a clear and transparent process, and if it's well and authentically communicated, I think it's fine for both sides. And if you need 3, you need 3, and if you need 2, you need 2. I think at the end of the day, there's no concrete number which gives the sense. It's more the description of the process. And probably if you have a complex kind of situation, you probably need 4, and it's okay as well. So
I had a fascinating experience when I applied for WeAreDevelopers, or when I basically said WeAreDevelopers, yes. And one of the companies in between had, instead of doing an interview, they actually made me do a task. So I was a technical product manager, and they said, like, okay, we have this product that we want to build. Can you write us a plan for that? Can you write us a delivery plan for that? And they paid for that for me as a freelancer. So basically, they had one of the projects that they couldn't get anybody internally to do done by somebody else, and it became theirs after that plan. And I got some money for it, so nobody wasted any time in the process. And I found that a very, very exciting new idea that a lot of companies could actually start embracing as well. Like, let people do some work for you, paid, and then nobody's wasting any time in the interview process or has to take time out of their schedule to do it.
Very cool idea.
Yeah, that's a good observation. It's a good experience. I need to start wrapping up this webinar, but I want to give priority to the questions that are coming in the chat. So from your experience, which soft skills separate good developers from great ones? I don't know who wants to take this one, but I will be happy to hear both of you.
Documenting and explaining, I think, is the big one, that basically everybody can write code, but explaining it to other people that they can understand it and maintain it is something that will be a very beneficial thing in the company later on. I realized that when I wrote my first book, I used technology professionally for 5 years, got paid for it. But when I started writing the book, I realized I don't even know how that works. So I had to actually learn it by explaining it. And I think soft skills, communication, to explain your technical acumen and your technical work to people in non-technical terms, that's a soft skill that actually brings to me a lead developer to a just delivery developer.
I see it very similar, and probably I add from my side, I would add communication skills, because I think we're living in a world where we really continuously have to communicate with others, because nobody of us is clever enough to solve the issues alone. And the second one, which I really miss a little bit, especially in Europe, is curiosity. I think curiosity is becoming one of our major skills that we all need. It's not only developers. I think being curious and being open for trying out new things, that's definitely a skill that we definitely need more.
Thank you, Rudi. Rudi, from HR perspective, how can companies turn their culture and employee experiences into stories developers actually want to hear? Like the kind of story that makes them think, I'd love to work here.
Please don't use advertising agencies. That's my first tip. So really, as Chris said, go to your developers and let them tell you why they love to work for your company, what is really bringing them standing up in the morning, brushing the teeth, taking a shower, coming to the office, and having kind of fun and feel good with what they do for you and your company. That's one thing. The second thing, which I think becomes more and more important for all of us as well, is we're living in a world where we can't see, at the end of the day, we can't see the daily outcome. It's very, very difficult, especially for developers. The things that they are producing are really, all the creativity ends up in the cloud. It's a kind of a code pass snippet that is delivered to a cloud, and in 3 days from now on, I think everybody has already forgot that it was produced with a lot of brain force and power and energy and creativity and passion. And I think that becomes more and more important to really, as a company, also underline what you're doing, what problems you solve as a company out there in the field. Because I think purpose becomes, especially if you're moving more and more into digital worlds, it's becoming essential. At the end of the day, dopamine is produced if you see an output and an outcome. And dopamine is extremely important for us as humans. And we need to take care that this appreciation, that this kind of purpose is really visible. I think you have to talk about that one.
Yeah, thank you, Rudi.
That's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, let's hear the developer perspective on this. Like, what kind of stories actually grab their attention and which ones make them tune out right away? If you can share examples, that would be great.
I think what I really like is companies that actually show what they do, warts and all. Like when you have like examples of where something broke, and actually they have a day after they have a blog post saying like, here is why we had an outage, and here is why that happened, and we're sorry, and we did the investigation, and our developer so and so found the problem. I think that's a very cool thing to do. It's a very important thing to do, because when somebody who's basically has to build stuff for you, when the company tries to gloss over problems all the time, or tries to show itself as bigger as they actually are, that's a thing that actually really deters me. And actually, I would never be bothered to actually do that, because it means that my work will never be shown in the right fashion as well. That will either be overhyped, or it will be underwhelming for people because, oh, he just fixed something. For a developer, fixing something and deleting code is actually much more exciting than actually writing code. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that like the way you put effort into the quality of your product by allowing people to actually fix it is something that is really exciting to say. And yeah, I mean, there's good advertising agencies out there as well that do good stuff. I think they're making things look pretty, making things look good, and actually have a readable fashion way of doing it is a very important thing. We just had a company that on last Friday I had in the coffee with developers that basically do amazing work. They really incredible stuff, but they're such nerds that they actually don't want to be on camera and didn't want to write about it. So I had to have a meeting with them beforehand and calm them down and talk about on the same technical level with them to get them out of their shell. And when you watch that recording of the last coffee with developers, you see them on ice over the whole series of the podcast. And in the end, they just got really excited and talked more and more about what the company is doing, and letting people and having this empathy for your technical people to bring them out there. Don't make them actually read out things into the camera that basically makes them look like, please kill me. Just let them talk about the things that excite them. And I think that's a very important part out there in the communication, the authenticity, and also backed up with data. Another big thing that I'm really excited about is companies come to us and they have like case studies. Case studies of what you've done and who you've worked for and what you've done. Don't just have like a list of 6,000 logos there. Just say what you've done for Volkswagen. Say what you've done for the New York Times and how you impacted that. That's actually the same thing that I look for in CVs. In CVs, I don't look at like, oh, I worked on performance. And I look for a sentence like, I worked on the New York Times website and I got their click-through rate up twice because I got the first paint down to like 1.2 seconds. Like, bring information rather than bringing fluff and basically saying like, we're a people company and that's why you just laid off 200 people. No, you're not a people company then.
Yeah. And it's amazing everything that you both shared from HR and business and also from developer perspective. I want to give you the floor for the last kind of couple of minutes. Is there anything I didn't ask, but you think it's important to share with the audience today?
Salaries.
Salaries. Let's talk about salaries for 5 minutes then, not 2 minutes. Okay. Tell us about salaries, Chris.
I mean, the amount of companies that basically send me a CV or send me a job ad and then basically are very coy about what they're going to pay. I've got mortgages. I don't have mortgages, but I got 2 places that I rent. I want to have a dog and I need some money from time to time. And that's a good thing to have. So just being upfront about this, and I don't know I don't know why that is. Same as I'm looking to buy a house at the moment. To get a price for a house is like sending 5 faxes and 16 emails in Germany right now. I don't know if there's a legal requirement for it, but just basically make me understand what's going on, and also the perks that come with it as well. Like. I don't care if you have a beer pong table or a foosball table in the office, but I care if you actually have a pension plan for something that I want to have later on. I care if you actually if you have what do you do for families with the company, these kind of things. Like if you are selling your company as a family thing, but you have nothing about your spouses and your children that work for you in the same company to a degree, then this is a weird thing to have. So be just open upfront about like, here's the salary, and never ever please say competitive salary, because then I basically come up with like football players or something and say, like, compete with that one.
Makes me laugh because I have a question for Rudi, and it's from the chat, and it is about a competitive salary. So how can I assess whether a salary is competitive in the tech market?
I mean, there's salary calculators out there. There's a lot of data available, and I think we also have one on our platform. So at the end of the day, I think it's just getting a kind of an information. But what I honestly can't understand, and that follows on Chris' message, Chris Hansen, I think it's so crazy that we are not talking about salaries. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're buying a house, if you're buying a car, I mean, the first information that you immediately find in all the ads is the price. And I mean, we try to fill a position, and we don't talk about, probably it's not the most, in some cases, probably it's the most important information, but it's definitely the second or third most important information. I mean, is the salary, and I mean, it's a hygiene factor which needs to be answered. I mean, it's one of the big questions, yeah. And we try to avoid this kind of transparency, and I mean, it has to do with authenticity. It has to do with transparency, and of course, yeah, probably if I'm not a big company that is able to pay the big salaries, yeah, then let's talk about it. But not all the candidates out there are just looking for money. For some purpose is much more important. For others, team is much more important. Job security becomes more and more important. So I think salary is a kind of, I mean, it's called compensation in English. So compensation, it compensates something. If all the other facts don't work, probably it becomes more and more important. It becomes number one. But I think in many, many cases, it's not even the most important factor. It's an important factor, and it should be answered transparently and clear. But I don't understand this kind of hidden secret thingy that is there for 25 years now.
Talking transparently about the salary is also very important because it gives a hint about the company culture. It's not only about being transparent about the salary. It speaks about how confident you feel about the fairness of the processes and the systems within the company. Sorry, Chris, you wanted to share something.
Let me quickly share that. This is what it looks like, and it's in the Halloween theme right now, so we can actually change it to the light theme as well. This is basically labs WeAreDevs.ai. That's something that we're working on right now, which is an artificial intelligence enhanced version of our old stuff, and that's basically the salary ranges. So you can see by country what salaries are being paid. You can see the distribution. You can actually see the experience level. And in general, market trends about salary transparency. 82% includes salary data, and means 20% never going to have me as a person working there. Programming languages, top markets, and so on and so forth. And you can search for different jobs as well to actually find out how much they would pay. So even before you actually put the thing out there, see what your company can afford. And basically, it's an interesting little detail that you can play with right now, that we had in the past as a very horrible little calculator, but this is a very clean way of getting more insights into that one. That's basically what we just created.
It's a nice one. Maybe we can post it in the chat as well so that our participants can have access to it. I really need to wrap it up and to close it now. So thank you very much, Rudi and Chris, and thanks to everyone who joined us today. If you'd like to go deeper or to engage with Chris and Rudi, please, they are very accessible. Contact them on LinkedIn, but also you can book a personalized session with our team at WeAreDevelopers. We'll take a closer look at your specific challenges and share some tailored strategies that work.